Next up, we have Mike Morrell, an Assemblyman representing this area. Like Gary Miller, he is the Democrats' #1 target in the state of California. So, come on, Mike.
How are you guys?
Hey.
Good. Hey. Good to be back, especially out of Sacramento, and be here with you guys. So thank you. It's been a while. What a great crowd tonight. And again, thank you for Congressman Miller. You did an excellent job. And I was going to say those very same things, but so ditto. But anyway, I'll give a little background what's going on in California. You know, when I think about it, because I just finished my first term, you know, we're rated number 50th for the worst place to do business. But when you think about it, we got some of the greatest weather in the world, Mediterranean-like climate. We can be up in Mount Bali skiing for Big Bear in an hour, be to the beach in another hour, or be in the desert. And we have 4 or 5 deep water seaports for trade, so we're positioned to just really rock when it comes to imports and exports. Then to the north we have the Silicon Valley, which leads the world in technology, and over the hill from there the San Joaquin Valley, which is now producing about $32 billion a year in agriculture revenue. And so at one time we were the envy of every state in America, so it makes you wonder how we've fallen so far, doesn't it? And right now there's just a lot of things. I'll get back and I'll answer my own question in a moment here. But some of the things I've seen, when I first got elected 2 years ago, I said I wanted to be able to come back and share with you things that I've learned. A couple of things many people will say to me or ask me, those guys up there in Sacramento, we need more people with common sense. How many have ever thought that or said that? A lot of them, right? Well, the thing I realized or recognized, God gives everybody the gift of human reason. Many of them choose not to use it, but there's a great little book, if you ever get a chance to read it, it's called The Law by Frédéric Batiste. It's only 70 pages. He was a French economist in the 1850s in France, and he was concerned about socialism. And when I read those 70 pages, it sounds like Sacramento or Washington, D.C. And I'll just give you 2 quick points because it's not a lack of common sense, and this is why we have to be active and vigilant as we secure our rights again. Number 1, he says selfish ambition leads to corruption, ladies and gentlemen. And that is what I find all day long up there. You know, it was interesting to me, I had a bill, AB 2 this year. I don't know if you read about it in the paper. Funny little thing, about 2,700 sex offenders have cut their bracelets off. And so they're nowhere to be found because of the 109 releasing the 64,000 prisoners, which our governor wanted to do. And so, I mean, there's been people who have been raped and murdered. A little girl was just kidnapped the other day, if you read about that, by a sexual predator. And so I really thought this bill would go, because I think we should put those guys back in prison, and I think every thoughtful person would think the same thing. Well, to my surprise, that bill did not go. And what it meant is my friends across the aisle, I guess, chose not to protect families or children, but chose to protect the predators. But the reason why is if you look at who their lobbyists were, where they get the money from, they were sitting and testifying in opposition to my bill. So what it came down to was the money they got when they had their fundraisers. That's what it was, because everybody knows child molesters should be put back in prison. Is anybody? There you go. And so what it is, it has been a corrupt system. And one of the ways we're going to have to get it back, we're going to have to relearn and then reteach those political principles of limited constitutional government back to their rightful place in American political life. You know, you clap. It just encourages me to go on, so maybe you don't want to clap. But you know, in the Constitution, there's only 17 enumerated powers that Congress is supposed to do. And yet today we do thousands of them. If we were to stick to that, things would go a lot better. Now, I'm just going to tell you sort of 2. The first half is our Congress is supposed to provide for the national defense. Then the other half, are primarily that government provides the infrastructure so commerce can thrive. Government shouldn't be in the business of it. It shouldn't be in business, but they should provide the roads, the infrastructure, and that's what our tax dollars go for. But today our tax dollars go for so many things that it's really bad. And I know you know that. What I see in Sacramento, what's killing our state and why we're losing so many jobs is we are continuing to overtax, but we also overregulate. And the fear for me is what they're doing in their bills or taxes or whatever. It should work sort of this way. The bill here should protect this person equally as this person over here. But in Sacramento, you're not having that today. You're having the bills take away from them and give an advantage to them. And that's why our businesses are having a hard time competing, and other states have figured out that they're coming to California to steal our businesses, just like Governor Perry has said he enjoys doing. But again, you know, those things are all stated in our founding principles. And I think another one too I want to talk to that sort of ties in what Congressman Miller said. It's two of my favorite phrases is we're governed by consent. First time in history. Remember, before that we were ruled by kings, and the people who wrote that were willing to pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor so that we can have the right to vote. We could change all of this in a pretty quick time if we would just upgrade the people we sent to Sacramento and Washington, D.C. But third thing that I've learned that I would like to share with you. You know, you hear a lot of people say they don't like politicians, am I correct? Yeah. But they usually like their politician in their area. We have to be careful of that because there's a friend of mine went to an insurance convention. There was a Democrat who was there who was their guest speaker. And my friend said, wow, Senator so-and-so, this gentleman, is really a pro-business, moderate, progressive, right? And I said, no. What they do, their little scam is they'll do 20 really bad bills, and then they'll have one bill so that they can go back to their constituents and say, you know, I tried to save business, but I got it voted down. And I'll tell you, it is a divide right now, unfortunately, because what you have is you do have progressivism, which means they want to expand government. They believe in the expansion of government, which historically, I think we've learned that as government expands, liberty contracts, and freedom and prosperity soon cease to exist. And I told a story probably a couple of years ago, but I'll remember it now, remind you of it again. Wilson, when he ran for president, he rose that top tax rate up to 77%, and the country was heading towards a recession. The next guy came along was Coolidge, who dropped that top tax rate to 24%, and of course everybody was fearful that the country would collapse. But what it did is got people producing again, and revenues actually increased 400% under him. And we all remember Jimmy Carter. Do you remember what interest rates were at that time? 17% to 19%, I think prime rate was 21%, and unemployment was 12%, and inflation was 13%. And of course his top tax rate was 70%. The next guy who came along, Ronald Reagan, lowered that tax rate to 28%, I believe, and I think the rest is history. It was the largest expansion of jobs in the history of the world. And so I think we should take a page from history and recognize when citizens are able to keep more of their money, especially as business owners do, they like to make more money, so they reinvest their profits back into the business, meaning your greatest asset is typically the people. So they hire people to get a paycheck. These people buy a paycheck, buy homes and furniture. Now you have to have more construction people building homes. And so it really does work, and that's why we should restore those things. And I know you guys are well aware of that. So, but to do that, we're going to have to reteach those principles and really be involved with elections, because California is a very tough state right now. But I don't think us Republicans in Sacramento have been able to clearly communicate what a free market is and what an advantage it is to people. I was reading an article about Congressman Pierce, I believe his name is, from New Mexico. And he's in a 70% Hispanic district. He's an old white guy, and he gets elected time after time, and he's one of the most conservative people in Congress. But the good news is he knows how to clearly articulate the political, economic, and moral principles that should be stated accurately. And then lastly, my favorite phrase in the Declaration of Independence, it talks about, we hold these truths to be self-evident, but they're placed there by the laws of nature and of nature's God. And what that essentially means is God has placed into nature economic, political, and moral principles. They can be ignored for a season or neglected, but they have an automatic way of righting themselves. And so we just came through some tough elections. It was very discouraging for me, and I'm sure for many of you. I had a number of emails. The Riverside Republican Women's Club wants me to come speak next month, and their email to me was, "Mike, we need hope," And I'm sure a lot of you have felt like that. But let me tell you, as long as we, I think it was Edmund Burke who said, we only fail when good men and women do nothing. And so this is a time in our history where we have a duty and responsibility to the next generation to give it our all and to fight for those political, economic, and moral principles, because God will make sure they're turned back to the way they're supposed to be, because just like none of us can spend beyond our means, neither can our state and neither can our nation. So those principles are timeless. That's why they start off with the bold phrase, we hold these truths to be self-evident, because that is historically accurate for the last 6,000 years of recorded history. So with that, I want to, let me share 2 more bills so you know what I'm doing. And then I will close out here. Proposition 30 was a tax raise. You guys remember that, right? And we were sold that it was a bill of goods to help the students. Does everybody remember that? Well, you remember that saying, the big print giveth and the little print taketh away? Well, you know what? Our old governor actually had a little print in there. And the big print made it sound like all that money is going to go towards education. But the reality of it is the legislature, who's ever in control, can decide where to backfill different things with that money. So what we did, I co-authored a bill, and we are holding that bill to make sure that every single dollar goes to education, just as what we were told it would be. So it could be a tough one to get past, but nevertheless, it's very popular with our students and with our parents and our citizens in general. But it also points out some of the things that are being corrupted in our society. And then one more bill too, as I've spoken with business owners, they want to recruit and bring jobs here. They want students who are educated, but they're having a hard time finding students in the STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And so we came up with a program. I have a bill, and the way it works, business loves it. I have 7 Cal States appear like they're going to sign up to go with it. But we want to be able to get these high school students who are motivated, where right now they can only take 12 units, credits, AP courses. We are going to let them take as much as they can so that they can enter in college, maybe a sophomore, even a junior. And we want to limit the tuition to between $10,000 and $12,000 for all 4 years, because one thing I think is, one thing that I think is wrong is when we send our young out with debt of $70,000 and $80,000. Thank you. And one of the college presidents I talked to, the way I explained it to him is I said, I know you're going to take a cut here, but would it be an accurate statement to say when you attract the brightest and the best scholars to your school, that's going to bring other students with you? He agreed with that, and I said, that's what this program will do for you. You'll get your money back just in advertising on this program. So right now we have approximately 7 colleges across the state, UCs, that are thinking on board with this program. So with that, those are some of the things going on in California. I believe it's 51 and 67. Somewhere in between there. So, there's 2,400 bills. I forget the names. I can count my money, but I can't always remember. Well, anyway, guys, thank you very much. And were you going to do questions?
One quick question. And citizen involvement. We've got those gender insanity bills. We've got those 3 bills passed through the Senate. So what happens when they write a letter to the editor? When they call a representative, do those get attention? Do they ignore them?
Here's what, and I'm working on a plan with a lot of people. I was talking to the Boy Scouts tonight out in Ontario, that's why I got here late. I've spoken to 22 pastors recently. Okay, let's just say for an example there's a bill that you like or you don't like and we're all on the same page and you live in my district. If you call me, kind of a wasted call because I'm going to pretty much, we're going to be on the same thing. But if it's a bill who's being supported by such and such over in Culver City, well, if you call over there, they're going to ignore you. You know what I mean? Because you're not a constituent. So remember these things, a little complicated, but I'm going to try to simplify it now. Once that bill hits the floor, it's done. Don't call at the last minute because it's not going to be stopped. We have to stop them in committee. There's 80 assembly people, right? But when you get in committee, it's typically 5 Republicans and 7 Democrats. So what we have to do is we go from 80 to now maybe anywhere from 7 to 12 people is all we have to contact. And all of these people, these 7 to 12 people, usually have 5 to 10 cities they represent. What we have to do, I have a Pastor Rob Zen out in Highland, Emmanuel Baptist. He's putting a list together of all the Baptist churches and all the churches in all these areas. And then what happens, when I notify them of a bill, then they're going to try to find all their contacts in that particular city. And I'll tell you what, so many of our politicians live in fear of their constituents. And they don't get that many calls. People don't watch what they're doing. But that's how you have to fight the battle, And that's why tonight I was talking to the Boy Scouts because they're going through their problems of their own. And they're trying to take their tax exempt status away. So I said, what you need to do is you got Boy Scouts up and down the state. You need to contact those scoutmasters and all of their parents in the cities on the guys on the education committee. And there'll be about 12 on the education committee. That's all you don't have to contact all 80, but you have to contact those people in those districts and then flood their offices with calls. And that's how you will be effective and efficient, guys. So with that, love you guys and God bless you and God bless America.